When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. I stood there in the doorway of the kitchen I had scrubbed for 30 years. The same kitchen where I had taught my son how to crack eggs without getting shells in the bowl. The same kitchen where I had cried the night my husband died. The same kitchen that now smelled like her perfume instead of my cinnamon tea. She was standing by the window with her arms crossed. Her face was calm, almost kind, but her words were sharp like winter air cutting through old bones. "Mom," she said softly, "I think it's time you found your own place." I remember nodding slowly. I remember the way the afternoon light came through the curtains and landed on her shoulder. I remember thinking how beautiful she looked when she was breaking my heart. My son wasn't home. He was at work, like always. He worked long hours to provide for his family. I was proud of him for that. But in that moment, I wished he was there. I wished he could see what was happening in his own house. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just smiled and said, "Okay." She looked surprised. Maybe she expected me to beg. Maybe she expected me to cry or to call my son or to remind her that this house was built with money my husband and I saved for 40 years. But I didn't say any of those things. Because I realized something in that moment. This house wasn't mine anymore. It stopped being mine the day my son brought her home as his wife. It stopped being mine the day I stepped back to let them build their own life. And maybe, just maybe, it stopped being mine the day I started feeling like a guest in the place I used to call home. So I smiled. And I said okay. But what she didn't know, what my son didn't know, was that someone was listening to every word. Someone who would change everything. Let me take you back to the beginning. My name is Eleanor. I'm 72 years old. I've lived in this town my whole life. I married young, had one son, and spent my days being a mother and a wife. That was my whole world. And I was happy with it. My husband, Robert, was a good man. He worked at the steel factory for 35 years. He wasn't the kind of man who said, "I love you" every day, but he showed it in other ways. He fixed the porch when it creaked. He made sure I had a warm coat every winter. He held my hand when we walked to church. We saved every penny we could. We didn't go on fancy vacations. We didn't buy new cars. We lived simply because we wanted to build something solid, something that would last. And after years of saving, we finally bought this house. It was a small 2-story house with a garden in the back. The paint was chipping when we moved in, but Robert fixed it. The kitchen tiles were cracked, but I didn't mind. It was ours. That was all that mattered. We raised our son, Daniel, in this house. I still remember him running through the hallway as a little boy, laughing so loud the neighbors could hear. I remember his first day of school, standing at the front door with his backpack almost bigger than him. I remember him growing taller every year until one day I had to look up to meet his eyes. He was a good son, polite, respectful. He called me every day when he went away to college. He came home every holiday. And when he graduated and got a good job in the city, I thought he might move away forever. But he didn't. He stayed close. He said he wanted to take care of me. When Robert died 5 years ago, Daniel was the one who held me while I cried. He was the one who planned the funeral. He was the one who stayed with me every night for a month because I couldn't sleep alone. I don't know what I would have done without him. 2 years after Robert passed, Daniel met Vanessa. She was younger than him by a few years. She had long dark hair and a smile that could light up a room. She worked in marketing, whatever that meant. She wore expensive clothes and talked about things I didn't always understand. But she made my son happy. I could see it in his eyes. When Daniel told me they were getting married, I cried tears of joy. I thought finally he'll have someone to share his life with. Finally, he won't be alone. The wedding was beautiful. Small but beautiful. Vanessa's family came from the city. They were polite but distant. I tried to talk to her mother, but she seemed distracted, always looking at her phone. Her father shook my hand once, and then spent the rest of the evening talking to other guests. But I didn't mind. I was too happy watching my son dance with his new wife. After the wedding, Daniel asked if they could move into the house with me. "Just for a little while, Mom," he said. "Until we save up for our own place." Of course I said yes. How could I say no? This house was too big for me anyway. I spent most of my days in the kitchen and my bedroom. The rest of the rooms just gathered dust. So they moved in. And at first, it was wonderful. Vanessa would cook dinner sometimes. She made dishes I'd never heard of, with ingredients I couldn't pronounce. But they tasted good. And I loved watching her move around the kitchen with so much confidence. Daniel seemed lighter. He laughed more. He came home from work with stories and jokes. He would sit with me in the evenings and tell me about his day. Vanessa would join us sometimes, curled up on the couch with a glass of wine, listening quietly. I thought, this is what family is supposed to feel like. But slowly, things started to change. It started with small things. Vanessa stopped cooking as much. She said she was too tired after work. I understood. So I started cooking again. I didn't mind. I liked cooking. It gave me something to do. But one evening, I made my special chicken casserole. It was Daniel's favorite. I used to make it every Sunday when he was growing up. I thought it would make him happy. When they came home, I had the table set. The casserole was still warm. The kitchen smelled like herbs and butter. Vanessa looked at the table and smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, Eleanor," she said gently. "We already ate." We grabbed something on the way home. I felt a small sting in my chest, but I smiled. "That's okay. You can have it tomorrow." She nodded, but she didn't take any leftovers. The next day, I found the casserole still in the fridge untouched. A few days later, I threw it away. Then there was the living room. I liked to sit in the armchair by the window in the evenings. It was my favorite spot. I could see the street, watch the neighbors walk their dogs, see the sun go down. I had sat in that chair for 20 years. One Saturday afternoon, Vanessa came into the living room with a notebook and a measuring tape. "Eleanor," she said cheerfully, "Daniel and I are thinking of redecorating. Make the space feel more modern." I looked around. The room looked fine to me. The couch was old, but it was comfortable. The curtains were faded, but they still worked. "Okay," I said slowly. "That sounds nice." She smiled. "Great. We're thinking of moving some furniture around, maybe getting rid of a few old pieces." I didn't think much of it until a week later when I came downstairs and my armchair was gone. In its place was a sleek gray couch I had never seen before. I stood there, staring at the spot where my chair used to be. I felt a strange emptiness in my chest. "Where's the chair?" I asked Vanessa when she came into the room. "Oh, we donated it," she said casually, scrolling through her phone. "It was taking up too much space. Don't you think the room looks better now?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to say that chair was mine, that it was where I sat with Robert every evening, that it was where I held Daniel when he was sick as a child. But I didn't say any of that. I just nodded. "Yes, it looks nice." She smiled and went back to her phone. I started spending more time in my bedroom after that. The changes kept coming. Vanessa repainted the hallway without asking me. She replaced the kitchen curtains with blinds. She brought in new dishes and put my old ones in boxes in the basement. Every time I walked through the house, it felt a little less like home. But I told myself it was fine. This was their house now. They were young. They had their own taste. I should be happy they were making it their own. Daniel didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he did, but he didn't say anything. He was so busy with work, always on his phone or his laptop, always in meetings. When he was home, he was tired. He would eat dinner quietly and then go upstairs to his office. I missed talking to him. I missed hearing about his day. I missed the way he used to ask me for advice, even about small things. Now, when I tried to talk to him, he would nod and say, "That's nice, Mom," without really listening. One evening, I asked him if everything was okay. We were in the kitchen. He was pouring himself coffee, getting ready to go back upstairs to work. "Daniel," I said softly, "do you have a minute?" He glanced at his watch. "Sure, Mom. What's up?" I didn't know how to start. I didn't want to sound like I was complaining. So I just said, "I feel like we don't talk much anymore." He looked at me, surprised. Then he smiled. "Mom, we talk all the time." "Do we?" I asked. He paused. Then he sighed and set his coffee down. "I'm sorry. Work has been crazy. But we're good, right? You're happy here." I wanted to tell him the truth. I wanted to say that I felt like a stranger in my own house, that I missed him, that I felt invisible. But when I looked at his tired eyes, I couldn't do it. "Yes," I said. "I'm happy." He smiled and kissed my forehead. "Good. I love you, Mom." Then he went upstairs. I stood there in the kitchen, alone, listening to the sound of his footsteps fading away. Things got worse after that. Vanessa started making comments. Little remarks that seemed harmless but stung in ways I couldn't explain. "Eleanor, you don't have to clean so much. We can hire someone. Eleanor, maybe you should rest more. You look tired. Eleanor, we're having some friends over tonight. Maybe you'd be more comfortable upstairs." Each comment was delivered with a smile. With kindness, even. But each one made me feel smaller. I started staying in my room more. I didn't want to be in the way. I didn't want to make things uncomfortable for them. One evening, I heard them talking in the living room. I wasn't trying to listen, but their voices carried up the stairs. "She's always here," Vanessa said quietly. "She lives here," Daniel replied, sounding a bit defensive. I know. But don't you think it would be better if she had her own space? Like a small apartment nearby? We could help her set it up. She'd be more independent." There was a long pause. "Maybe," Daniel said finally. "I'll think about it." My heart sank. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall. I felt like I couldn't breathe. This was my house. Robert and I had built this life. We had worked so hard to have something to pass on to our son. And now I was being asked to leave. But I didn't cry. Not then. I just sat there, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. A few weeks later, Vanessa asked me to leave. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Daniel was at work. I was in the kitchen washing dishes. Vanessa came in, dressed nicely like she was about to go out. She leaned against the counter and watched me for a moment. "Eleanor," she said gently, "can we talk?" I dried my hands on a towel and turned to face her. "Of course." She took a breath. "I've been thinking, and I talked to Daniel about this. We both think it might be time for you to find your own place." The words hit me like cold water. I stared at her, trying to understand. "My own place?" "Yes," she said, nodding. "Somewhere nearby. Maybe a small apartment or a senior community. Somewhere you'd have your own space. We'd help you, of course. We'd visit all the time." I felt something crack inside me. "This is my house." She looked uncomfortable. "I know it feels that way. But Daniel and I are building our life together. And we need space to grow. We want to start a family soon and we'll need the extra room." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her that I had given up that space willingly. That I had stepped aside to let them live their life. That I had made myself smaller and smaller until I was barely here at all. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I asked quietly, "Does Daniel know you're telling me this?" "We talked about it," she said. "He agrees. He just didn't want to hurt your feelings." I felt my hands shaking. I clasped them together to keep them still. "When do you want me to leave?" She softened a little. "There's no rush. Take your time. A few weeks, maybe a month." I nodded slowly. She reached out and touched my arm. "Eleanor, this isn't personal. I hope you understand." I looked at her hand on my arm. Then I looked at her face. She looked sincere. She probably even believed what she was saying. But it didn't matter. Because in that moment, I understood something. This wasn't about space. This wasn't about family. This was about control. Vanessa wanted this house to be hers. Completely hers. And I was in the way. "Okay," I said quietly. "I'll start looking." She smiled, relieved. "Thank you. I knew you'd understand." Then she left. I stood there in the kitchen, alone again. And for the first time in years, I let myself cry. But I wasn't crying because I was sad. I was crying because I was angry. Angry at myself for letting it get to this point. Angry for staying silent. Angry for thinking that love meant making myself invisible. Later that evening, Daniel came home. I was in my room, packing some things into boxes. I didn't have much. Most of my belongings were already in storage or had been replaced over the years. There was a soft knock on my door. "Mom!" Daniel's voice was quiet. "Come in," I said. He opened the door and stepped inside. He looked around at the boxes and his face fell. Mom, what are you doing? I kept folding clothes. I'm packing. Vanessa told me you both think it's time for me to move out. He ran a hand through his hair. She talked to you already? Yes. He sat down on the edge of my bed. Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't want it to be like this. I stopped folding and looked at him. Then why is it like this? He looked down at his hands. I don't know. Things have just been complicated. Vanessa feels like we don't have enough space. And I thought maybe it would be good for you to have your own place. Somewhere you could do whatever you want without worrying about us. I felt tears sting my eyes again. Daniel, this is my home. I don't want to leave. He looked up at me, and I saw guilt in his eyes. I know, but maybe it's time. Maybe it would be better for everyone. Better for who? I asked. For you, or for Vanessa? He didn't answer. I sat down next to him. Your father and I built this house for you. We wanted you to have something solid, something safe. And I thought I could stay here and be close to you. I thought we'd be a family. We are a family, he said quietly. Are we? I asked. Because I don't feel like I'm part of it anymore. He looked at me, and for a moment, I saw the little boy he used to be. The one who used to hold my hand when he was scared. The one who used to tell me everything. But then he stood up. I'm sorry, Mom. I really am. But I think this is the right decision. Then he left. And I sat there alone, in the room that used to be my sanctuary. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. I thought about Robert. I thought about the life we had built. I thought about all the sacrifices I had made, all the times I had stayed quiet to keep the peace. And I realized something. I had let this happen. I had let myself become invisible. I had let Vanessa take over without saying a word. I had let Daniel drift away because I didn't want to be a burden. But I wasn't a burden. I was his mother. And this was my house. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I got dressed. I made myself tea. And I went downstairs. Vanessa was in the living room, typing on her laptop. She looked up when I walked in. Good morning, Eleanor, she said brightly. Good morning, I replied. I need to talk to you. She closed her laptop. Of course. What's on your mind? I took a breath. I've been thinking about what you said yesterday. About me moving out. She nodded. Yes. I'm not going to do it. Her expression changed. What? I'm not leaving, I said calmly. This is my house. My husband and I bought it. We paid for it. And I'm not going anywhere. She stood up, her face hardening. Eleanor, we talked about this. Daniel and I need space. Then you can find space somewhere else, I said. I was here first. She laughed, but it wasn't a kind laugh. You think this house is yours? Daniel owns it now. You signed it over to him 2 years ago. My heart stopped. She was right. After Robert died, my lawyer had advised me to put the house in Daniel's name to avoid estate taxes. I had done it without thinking. I trusted my son. Vanessa saw the look on my face and smiled. So technically this is Daniel's house. And he wants you to leave. I felt the ground shift beneath me. Does he? I asked quietly. Or is that what you want? She crossed her arms. It doesn't matter. Either way, you're leaving. I stood there, frozen, as she walked past me and left the room. I didn't know what to do. I felt defeated. Beaten. Like I had lost everything. But then I remembered something. When I had signed the house over to Daniel, my lawyer had included a clause. A small detail I had insisted on. It said that as long as I was alive, I had the right to live in the house. It was a protection in case something ever happened. Daniel came to my room one evening. He looked tired. Sad even. Mom, he said quietly. Can I talk to you? Of course, I said. He sat down on the edge of my bed, just like he used to when he was younger. I've been thinking a lot, he said, about everything that's happened. And I realized something. I stayed quiet, letting him talk. I let Vanessa make me forget what's important. I let her convince me that you were in the way. But you're not. You're my mom. And I'm sorry. Tears filled my eyes. Daniel. He took my hand. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if I can fix this. But I want to try. I squeezed his hand. We can try together. He nodded, his eyes wet with tears. Things didn't change overnight. Vanessa and I still kept our distance. But Daniel and I started talking again. Really talking. Like we used to. He asked me about my day. He listened when I spoke. He even started eating dinner with me again, just the two of us, like old times. And slowly, I felt like I had my son back. A few months later, Daniel and Vanessa sat me down. I thought they were going to ask me to leave again. But instead, Vanessa looked at me and said something I didn't expect. "I'm sorry, Eleanor." I blinked, surprised. She took a breath. "I've been thinking about the way I treated you. And I realize now that I was wrong. I was so focused on making this place ours that I forgot you were part of this family too." I didn't know what to say. She continued, "I can't promise everything will be perfect. But I want to try. I want us to be a real family." I looked at her, and I saw something I hadn't seen before. Regret. Vulnerability. "Okay," I said softly. "Let's try." It wasn't perfect after that. We still had our moments. But there was something different. Something softer. I stayed in the house. And over time, it started to feel like home again. Vanessa and I found a rhythm. We learned to respect each other's space. She even asked me to teach her how to make Robert's favorite pot roast. We spent an afternoon in the kitchen, laughing when she burned the onions and trying again until we got it right. Daniel watched us from the doorway, smiling. "See," he said, "I knew you two would figure it out." And maybe he was right. Looking back now, I realize something important. Sometimes love means standing your ground. Sometimes it means saying no. Sometimes it means fighting for the space you deserve, even when it's uncomfortable. For so long, I thought love meant making myself smaller. I thought it meant being quiet and staying out of the way. But that's not love. That's just disappearing. Real love is honest. It's messy. It's hard. But it's also worth it. I'm still here in this house. I sit by the window in the mornings with my tea. I cook dinner sometimes. I talk to Daniel about his day. I even talk to Vanessa, and sometimes we laugh together. This house is still mine. Not because I own it legally, but because I fought to stay. Because I refused to disappear. And I hope that anyone listening to this story remembers something. You are not a burden. You are not in the way. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to be seen. You are allowed to stand your ground. Because you deserve to be here. Just as much as anyone else.